It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, what in the world is going on right now? People's screens are probably going nuts. Didn't even know that this was possible. We got a full bus right now. We had to rent a minivan for this afternoon drive. Derrick Bell and Nick Farabaugh both joining the show. What's going on, fellas?
We calling this episode like Fantastic Four? What's up? We need a creative thumbnail.
Alan sent me. Well, you didn't like the last thumbnail that I thought was pretty creative, so I don't know that I can cook up one to your liking. The fearsome foursome was the way that Alan worded that to me when he told me who was going to be on the show today.
I think maybe though, this may be more appropriate. I think that's the way to go.
Throw them up. Okay, now I want people in the comments to let us know who is who, if that is the case. Because I got to know who people think we are. Guys, I'm excited to have, obviously, all four of us on one episode. This is pretty crazy, but I'm excited to talk about some different things here. Alan, you were very passionate about wanting to talk about one specific topic on today's show. Cody Benjamin, CBS Sports, called the Steelers offense very archaic in terms of the way that they want to get things done. So their biggest red flag was just in general the style of offense that they are going to run under Arthur Smith.
Yeah, man, I really want to push back pretty strongly against this. And look, I'm not saying that Arthur Smith's offense is like cutting edge or like the best of the best, right? Like it's not Shanahan, okay? It's not McVay. It's not look, the last 3 years in Atlanta, it's been mediocre. And we had that one good stretch and he was in Tennessee. We'll see if he can replicate that or not. I'm not saying that Arthur Smith is like the answer or one of the best offensive coordinators in the league or anything like that. But his whole basis for saying that this offense is archaic is that they want to run the ball a lot. And I just think that's completely missing a massive trend that is happening around the NFL where we are seeing teams run the ball more and run the ball more successfully than we have in a long time. The 2022 season was a crazy outlier in terms of rush attempts, but the top 4 seasons of yards per carry running in the entirety of NFL history have happened since 2018. Running the ball works right now. It works better than it has ever worked, especially if you have mobility at the quarterback position and you can use that to create an extra gap for defenses and you can out leverage them. I think it is look at the teams that are doing well in the NFL right now. Yeah, the San Francisco 49ers have crazy pass concepts. They still run the ball more than anybody else. The Detroit Lions run the ball, made the NFC Championship game. The Ravens, the Eagles, so many teams that are run-first teams are having so much success right now. I don't know how you can be watching the NFL and be paid to be watching the NFL right now and say, you can't run the ball in the NFL anymore. What are you talking? Yeah, I understand that was the trend for a long time, but those trends change, and we're witnessing those trends change very specifically in the last 4 or 5 years here, swing pretty hard back the other way. I think if you think a run first offense in the NFL in 2024 is archaic, I think you're probably going to have, I would bet right now, 3 of the 4 championship game teams are probably going to be run first teams. The only one that I think is likely to get there that isn't is the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody else, maybe the Dolphins. The Dallas Cowboys, very good team the last few years. They run the ball a ton. Everybody good runs the ball. I don't understand this.
Obviously, Derek and Nick are going to have much more to say on this topic. I just wanted to point out, Alan, I was looking at pass attempts. The 49ers, Ravens, Titans, only 3 teams in the NFL with less than 500 pass attempts last year. 49ers, very first, fewest pass attempts, 491.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting topic because I do think a lot of people nowadays obviously we know that passing is more efficient than running the ball. That is a stat that you look at, but I think sometimes we don't look at what the benefits of running the football are. I'll look at the Buffalo Bills for an example. You look at Josh Allen and that team. Obviously, they have the ability to do a lot because Allen himself is so dynamic. What a big reason why the Bills weren't able to get past and over the hump was because teams would sit back on them and they couldn't run the ball. So they would not be able to dictate boxes. They would not be able to dictate coverages on the back end. When you can run really well and punish too high, you can do really cool things with your offense. And sometimes teams will just sit back there. If you have Patrick Mahomes, for example, some teams will just sit back there. It depends on who you'll play, but they will just sit back there at times. So by running the ball, man, you dictate boxes, you dictate coverages, you can dictate fronts. So you can dictate a lot just by running the ball. And that's why it's a big thing, right? Because not only that, what does that do? It eventually gets into people's heads. If you're running wide zone so much, the linebackers, and I know you don't need to run the ball obviously to set up the play action. That we kind of have data on that. But when you do run the ball really well, linebackers are going to be even more likely to cheat down, and you can kind of hit back behind there, open up the middle of the field a little bit, and get explosive plays. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Almost every top run team, man, has a very robust play action game or something with the middle of the field that they kind of put defenders in conflict in, whether that's safeties, slot corners, linebackers. You look at Ben Johnson in Detroit, for example, man, he's great at putting these guys in conflict with one another, whether that's play action or not, because you can run concepts that aren't play action that kind of work with your run game and really toy with those guys in the second level. And so the run game, man, is big. It does different things. It makes motion, for example, really, really go, because if you're just running motion, for one side of the run game or the pass game, and it gets kind of fluffy. You've seen that many times with Matt Canada, right? Where the motion's just there. So it opens up a ton of things. So running to run isn't good, but also just an overall emphasis on wanting to run the ball and then create explosive plays off that isn't necessarily a red flag. We've seen a lot of guys do that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of just to touch a little bit further on like what you guys have already said. I mean, granted, it is still a passing league. Like I say all the time, like the NFL is a quarterbacks league. That's what it is. Like you look at the teams that are competing year in, year out, the most consistent teams throughout the past several decades, like have the best quarterbacks. But like you look at the run game and like the things that it can do for you and provide stability on offense, like the top 10 teams last year in rushing success rate all made the playoffs. So like that tells you like how important it is to be able to run the ball efficiently. Now, people will say like different things about if you're run first or pass first or whatever. I think the most important thing with that discussion is, can you do both when you need to? Like Nick talked about, like with the different style of coverages that you could see, the different type of fronts or structures, with these defenses wanting to play a little bit more too high, back the safeties up, try to roll the ball off the table, whatever. Like the most important thing with that is you have to be able to run the football. Like some of these Shanahan adjacent schemes have things built into where if they get too high looks, they will literally check the play out and say, we're running the ball no matter what. And like their offense is really built around the ability to be able to run the ball efficiently when teams are want to play with light boxes and keep that extra safety back. And then you get into some of those regulated looks like Nick talked about with the middle field close stuff where you're, able to work your play action concepts, take advantage of linebackers' eyes and the over pursuit of the second level defenders and all those different things. I think for me, like Cody's point, and full disclosure, I just heard about this 5 seconds before we started recording. So like I haven't read it, so I don't want to hard on this too bad. But it sounds like to me, like his overall point is the scheme is archaic because they want to run the ball. I would disagree and push back on that. Now, if there are things to critique, kind of like what Alan said, Atlanta was a very mediocre offense the last 3 seasons. And like you can't hide from that. Every bit of numbers and data will tell you that. My thing, and this is something that I've talked about for months since the hire, is that Arthur Smith's scheme is going to have to evolve from what it has been over the last 5 years because football changes. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of the wide zone stuff. This is something that I was talking about with a Steelers player yesterday. A lot of the wide zone stuff that really was prevalent in the late 2010s is like kind of going away. You're seeing more teams not only lean more into the run game, but into more gap and power concepts. And the reason for that is because like we got lighter bodies up front. Like the way that teams are playing at the line of scrimmage now are a little bit more conducive to taking advantage of, some power, some gap schemes. So I think for me, it's not whether his approach to wanting to run the football is archaic. Like, they're still going to need to be able to throw the ball in order to have success and win playoff games. I just want to see him evolve more past, okay, we're going to run zone concepts 88% of the time. Like, I just don't think that I think if you look at the other successful offensive coordinators, the Shanahans, the McVays, guys like that, the real innovators, they're able to mix and match more and be less, strict to just doing one thing offensively. I just don't think that works really on either side of the ball right now at the NFL level.
Yeah, I think that like these things are cyclical, right? Like, teams threw the ball more. So now you have more teams that consider their nickel a starter, right? Teams with, and we're going to talk more about the changes at the defensive line, teams without, with lighter defensive tackles, guys that are more able to get upfield and rush the passer and aren't necessarily run stoppers. Way more emphasis on coverage at the linebacker position, safeties, fewer guys that play in the box, and more too high. All of those were adaptations to increase in throwing from the late 1990s, till about 2015. And now you're seeing offenses look at those defensive adjustments and say, oh, well, they got skinny, right? They got light boxes. They got lighter guys in those boxes. Now we can go heavy against them. Not only can we run more, we can run more power. I think we're going to continue to see more fullback usage, both from Arthur Smith and from around the rest of the league as we progress here. I don't think that makes it archaic. That's just a natural adaptation to, hey, we did this, they did that. The answer to that is going back to this thing that we used to do. It doesn't matter how old a concept is. It can still be good. Like, if somebody goes out there and wants to install the veer or the single wing or the T formation, and they have the personnel to do it, and they do a really good job of it, just because the concepts have been around for a very long time doesn't make them bad. Like, archaic as an insult itself, I disagree with. Almost every football play you see has been called before, and most of them have been called for 50 years. Like, just something being old doesn't mean it's bad. You just got to call the right play at the right time, have the guys to execute the concepts that you're trying to call, and then merge those two things together. You can have success with any concept you want. It doesn't need to be quote unquote cutting edge. Like, old works too.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to get back to where every team is just running the triple option, like military school style offenses.
Old school college football days.
Yeah, that is what
you know what? I actually had somebody on Twitter comment this too. Is like, sometimes if you are good at the thing that is not currently the popular thing to do, that is its own advantage. Also, like, I remember when I was covering Pitt hated playing Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech wasn't that good, but it was the game every year where the Pitt defense was like, oh, pulling their hair out because they didn't see it. Like, they'd see it one time a year, maybe if even that, because they have unbalanced schedules, right? So, and it was just a different thing you had to prepare for, and it was a different challenge. And Georgia Tech got to recruit athletes that nobody else really wanted because they only fit their scheme, and it was an advantage for them. Like, doing something that is against the flow, if you're good at it, can be an advantage.
Yeah, two things real quick. One, what Alan's talking about with the Georgia Tech thing, like, that is a real thing. Like, when you talk about the difficult offenses to play against, like, in my opinion, that's sort of what's made Baltimore a little bit difficult to play against for the majority of the NFL teams. Granted, the Steelers have had some good success against them, but because a lot of these other teams over the past, 4 or 5 years ago, running a lot of wide zone, well, Baltimore's been power heavy. They've been gap heavy. They've been able to tap into different type of personnel through the NFL draft. They've, done different things like with the quarterback run game stuff. They've played a different style of ball than basically everybody else was playing at that point. So it does make them unique, and it makes them more difficult to game plan for. And then what you guys are saying about the triple option, I mean, like, kind of to Alan's point about, like, everything's been around for like 50 years. The real innovators are just basically taking like old stuff and putting like new twists on them. And then, it takes, defenses a year or two to normally catch up to that stuff. But like, just like with the triple option, the RPOs it's the same thing. Like, if you look at the triple option, the way it's constructed, you got 3 different options to get the ball. RPOs and like what teams were implementing, in 2017, 2018, like going real RPO heavy. It's the same thing. You got a dive player, you got the quarterback, and then you got the toss or the pitch. It's just the pitch now is a pass. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all about putting defenders in conflict. But I would agree. I just think my thing is less about, Smith's approach to being extremely run heavy and the amount of times he wants to run the ball. maybe on first or second down, or his philosophy, and more about like, I just will continue to drive home the point that I think that they have to become more versatile on offense, to where they're not as stagnant or as fixated on just one way to win. Because I think in the NFL right now, on both sides of the ball, you have to have multiple ways to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, any last thoughts on that?
No, I think they covered it pretty well. I think it's pretty obvious just having a willingness to run the ball doesn't make your offense archaic. Now, Arthur Smith's offense, I think, as Derek mentioned, I think has to evolve. The gap stuff is a big part of that. I'd like to see a more robust drop back game too, personally. I think he could evolve there a little bit, like the play action stuff. But it is not archaic just because of its mindset. I don't think that's the way to approach it. Although I think that's the simplistic way to think about it. I've seen that narrative go around, so this isn't the first time. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, we're picking on this guy, but I see this from the fan base all the time. That like they have this idea that like throwing equals modern equals good, and like that's just not it.
Yeah, absolutely. Somewhere in there, we kind of talked about, obviously, is a cyclical game. We're seeing teams get lighter on the defensive line and stuff like that. Interesting conversation there to be had, and also good transition for us. Derek just had Breiden Fehoko, Steelers nose tackle, on his channel, had a discussion with him about that. Derek actually told us, I mean, I don't know if you guys knew this, obviously from seeing him, you could probably tell, but they had Fehoko drop 30 pounds from last season to this season. We really didn't get to see him get onto the field, despite, raving reviews about how he looked in training camp last year, and I thought he would have been a good body to have at least in interdivisional games. Derek, what did you take? What were your main points taken away from your conversation with Fehoko? And then maybe we can have some conversation just based off those talking points.
Yeah, I mean, really good conversation. You guys can go check that out. But some of the main topics that we talked about.
Yeah, I'll link it down below, by the way, as well.
Yeah, some of the main topics though, like just the him dropping so much weight. I've seen pictures of him in the offseason. He looks really good. I mean, you think of like those old school run stopping plugger types. That's kind of what his reputation was with the Chargers. But when he came here, the way his body looked last year compared to this year is completely different. I mean, I think he said that when he signed his contract last year, he was like 328 or something like that. I think he said now he's down below 300 pounds. So I think it speaks to the changing archetypes on the Steelers defensive line, like what they're after. You look at the guy that they're playing primarily at zero tech right now is Keanu Benton. Keanu Benton's 290. So that's not necessarily a new revelation. I mean, they've you look at like Javon Hargrave when he played the zero tech here in Pittsburgh, like he was another really lighter body, even lighter probably than the guys were mentioning, different body type. But, I think he's, some of the things he talked about was one to be, more versatile, slimming down. So he has a little bit more juice rushing the passer, can bend his body in certain ways. There was a lot of interesting discussion there in terms of, just playing for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers culture. I thought that he spoke. I'm going to post a clip on that on Twitter, but he spoke very favorably of Mike Tomlin. That's something I always love hearing about when I go to the combine and get to talk to prospects. Is like their interactions with Tomlin in general and how he carries himself and the culture that he's built with the Steelers, and a lot of other interesting topics. He told me a couple guys that he's really looking forward to in terms of breaking out this year. He had glowing reviews really of like Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and really just it kind of hit home a little bit of the vibe that I've gotten from listening to Alan and Nick talk to these guys and putting up stuff on the Steelers Now site interview wise, hearing interviews on social media, different things. But like, I just think that the leadership aspect of the quarterback room right now is like the thing that I think is getting talked about most. And, maybe some of that is a little bit cliche, but I really do feel like a lot of the discussions that I've had personally that I see seem really genuine about how Russ is like commanding the room in the way he's going about his business in a really professional manner. And I think that that's something that, could potentially provide dividends. Of course, what happens on the field and between the white lines is what matters. But I think a lot of people have been really impressed with the way he's carried himself since he's been in Pittsburgh.
It's kind of interesting. The body types part of that, I think, is the real interesting part. Now the Fehoko's down. They don't really have a huge dude on the line. I'll just go through kind of the names on the list. Montravius Adams, probably right around 300, maybe slightly over it. I think he measured coming out of college at 304, probably plays more around 297, somewhere around there. Dean Lowry came out of school under 300. I'd say he's still under there by seeing him in person. Isaiah Loudermilk came in at 274. He's up now probably to about 295, 300, but all these guys are on that border. They're not all at 300. Benton actually slimmed down a little bit, right? So he's a little slimmer. We obviously know DeMarvin Leal is under 300 given his tweener status. So you look at, guys like Larry Ogunjobi and then Cam, obviously, who are kind of this older brethren type player. But look at the guys they have, man. They're all different kind of from what you had, right? They're not Stephon Tuitt. Ogunjobi, I think, is probably 305-ish, 300-ish. He's probably right around there. But different body types, man. Like, not everyone is like this super long guy that's 315 pounds anymore, which is so interesting to me. The Steelers have changed what they've looked for on the line significantly. And this is kind of something I think we talked about a little bit during the draft process when we were kind of zeroing in on who they would draft, just because there was such a wide range of guys. Like, there was, the typical Steelers build and a guy like Mason Smith, but then you could really flip it on its head and go the complete other direction, with a few of those guys. So it's interesting to me, that they have guys like Fehoko slimming down, and these guys aren't going to be traditional zero techs, because I think what the Steelers are trying to do is, when they're not in base, a lot of these guys, these noses are going to be guys that they view that can play sub-package football, right? They got pass rush upside. So it's interesting that you look at it that way and kind of what they want out of these guys, because it's not the age anymore of these big, guys like Casey Hampton that were two gap and eating up double teams. That's not really what they're looking at anymore. It's kind of penetrating, explosive, guys that maybe play as a zero, but if you're in sub packages, can maybe even go out and play a 4-eye. So it's kind of interesting.
I know Alan's going to have a lot to say about this topic too, but just like real quick, like we talked about just like the rotation of guys, that there's a lot of playing time right behind the starters. I think the starters are set in stone. Like we all probably feel extremely good about the Steelers defensive line, provided Cam and Larry are both healthy. Like, those guys, when they're healthy, are different players than they probably were last year, Cam especially. But there is, rotational pieces that they're going to have to figure out roles for. And like, could Fehoko play a part in that? Who knows? I mean, I think that's definitely what he's shooting for. But a guy like Armon Watts, who's now, and I think New England, he was one of their primary like sub-package rushers or reserve rushers off the bench. So there's going to be more snaps for guys like potentially maybe Fehoko or DeMarvin Leal or Isaiah Loudermilk, for those guys to slide into, because you can't play your defensive lineman 80-90% of the snaps, especially now that, Cam's getting up there in age.
Yeah, I think, like we said, like, most defenses are trending towards lighter packages. I think the fact that like Keanu Benton, like, it's great that he played great on the nose, but he has to play 3-tech in the sub packages for them to really like call him a success as a player. And so like, I think they're honestly kind of moving towards, like, when they're in that base defense, which they're not in very often, 20% of the time, maybe right now, like, you're just kind of getting 3 interchangeable parts almost at this point. Like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really want to put Cam at the nose very often, but Larry's played the nose before. I got like, they're basically all about the same size. I mean, it's not that different, right? And so that has its pluses and its minuses. I think against those really like gap power teams, like Baltimore wants to put Patrick Ricard in there, and or whoever they have in that role. I think that's hard to do if you don't have a 315, 320 pound nose tackle. And I understand, like, I don't know. I kind of think there is a role for those guys even right now. I was a little surprised that we didn't see Fehoko play at all last year. Like, I understand, like, sure, you need the depth pass rushing, but he's such a good run stopper. And they were not really a good run stopping team last year. They were pretty middle of the road. Like, I think, I don't know. I think a role for, like, they don't all have to be elite pass rushers. Like, if you want your starting 3, and even if you want your first couple backups to kind of all be guys that could be 3-techs, I still think there is room on your game day roster to have one big plugger that is just going to be your nose tackle in base defense and especially if we see more teams start using the fullback and more teams running more gap. Like, I don't know. I think that's still valuable.
Alan, yesterday somebody asked us if we thought there was another defensive line addition that was possible. And going back to last week, we had a conversation with Derek on here about like what other types of defensive linemen would you be looking for to kind of build along with for the future, along with Keanu Benton. Taking all this information into account for both of those questions, looking at the archetype that the team has been targeting, and not just the team, but like just the trends of the NFL, does that change your mind in your opinion of that?
No, I mean, I don't think there's anybody out there for them to add right now. I think when you look at things long term, like I still like that's not an important piece. Like it can be a Breiden Fehoko, a guy you just sign off the scrap heap and keep around. Like no one's using second round draft picks on nose tackles, right? Like you got to have that person has to be able to play all the time. But I do think there is a role for somebody to have a bit part on the defensive line as sort of like the, for lack of a better term, the kind of designated run stuffer. And yeah, I think that guy could be bigger and I don't have a problem with it. I don't know. Like I don't know. I think the Steelers should have wanted to use Breiden Fehoko more than they did last year. So I'm kind of curious to see how this all plays out with him slimming down this year.
This really goes back to a conversation, Smitty. I know you and I have had this, but really around draft time that I think is really important to designate between the evaluation process and the valuation process. Like, I think, a lot gets talked about in terms of like what players can and can't do. But I think the part that a lot of people miss, like when we're going through the draft cycle, is like the valuation process of it is like, okay, what is that player worth to you? You know what I'm saying? And like kind of what Alan was saying, we're not seeing like pure nose tackles go very, very high anymore. And that's just because a lot of those guys that are playing. Go ahead.
How many Steelers fans tried to say that Tavondre Sweat should have been in play in the second round?
Yeah, I mean, and we'll see if maybe Sweat proves me wrong or whatever. Have you? I didn't value him at that point of the draft either. But I mean, it's just like one of those things where a lot of these nose tackles are not. They're not going high in the draft, especially if they don't provide like pass rushing upside. Now, if you can go get a guy like, for instance, like Dexter Lawrence for the Giants, he's like a freak of nature who is absolutely fantastic against the run, but he's also a heck of a pass rusher from the zero tech. Yeah, I mean, having a guy that can rush the passer against a center, because centers are typically the weakest pass blockers on the offensive line anyway. Like if you can isolate those guys and have a guy that can win a one-on-one, that's super valuable, man. But like, there's just not a lot of people that can do that at that position. And like Fehoko's a good example. He went undrafted coming out of LSU. Like he was a starter on a team that won the national championship. He had that reputation as a good run stopper. But he goes undrafted and it took him a little bit to carve out a role. He eventually did with the Chargers. And he was really adamant that, he took a lot of Carl Dunbar's coaching last year really to heart. And I feel like, he feels like, Dunbar really has like changed his perspective on the game. And he feels like he's so much better of a player now than he was this time last year, even though he didn't get a lot of playing time. So I think that I'm really interested to see him at camp just to see what his body looks like compared to the last time we've seen him. But also like what the rotation looks like behind the starters. Because I do think that the Steelers' depth on defense, like he talked about this as well, the Steelers do have some good depth at certain places. But we talked about last week, I do think there are question marks on the defensive line in terms of who's going to take the lion's share of those snaps off the bench.
Yeah, there's openings, man. So if a guy like Fehoko has a really good camp, he can slide in there. I think really only two guys on that depth line are guaranteed to make the roster, and that would be Adams and Lowry. I think those two are pretty safe to make the team and actually play. But I mean, there's openings outside of that. Even if you maybe liked some of the strides a guy like Loudermilk took down the stretch last year where he became a little bit more of a dependable run player. But, Leal's a complete wild card. Logan Lee, I mean, his tape at Iowa was a roller coaster at times and certainly not consistent over the entirety of it. So, man, Fehoko, he has a really good camp. I thought he had a really good camp last year. I think he has a chance to play. I agree with Alan. I really thought, they did call him up, I believe, for that Ravens game last year. The one
he didn't play.
Didn't play, yeah.
I think the Raiders game too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And he never played. So it was kind of interesting, especially with Cam down. Like their best run stopper was down, and it put a lot of pressure on other guys to step up. And that didn't really work out well because it wasn't the defensive line that had the pressure to stand up because they pretty clearly didn't have the guys to do it. So the onus then became placed on, blitzes with guys like Minka who came down in the box more and, putting more on the plate of the linebackers if they could. And even though, I think Elandon Roberts and Quan Alexander and Cole Holcomb did a nice job, it started to, I think.
And those guys started to get hurt.
Yeah, started to get hurt. So, and Minka got hurt. And so it put a lot of pressure on other guys. And so, Fehoko being someone that could at least stop it at the first point of attack, I think would have been huge because all those guys at the second, third level, man, were getting beat up just because they had to make tackles down the field.
How was my man Breiden Fehoko getting out snapped by Desmond King?
One to nothing.
Steelers legend.
I don't know. Anything else Steelers football related you guys want to touch on?
Just in case anyone wants to dip out a little bit early on the episode, please don't, because we have a special announcement. But apparently Brandon Ayuk was live on the Pivot talking about playing for the Steelers. So I mean, the thing is, we haven't talked about that hardly at all.
The Steelers?
Yeah,
we haven't talked about Brandon Ayuk.
We haven't talked about Brandon Ayuk at all.
Never happened.
I can only imagine the amount of thumbnails that are going to come out of that.
Listen, I know that he's. I saw him wearing a pirate hat on his Instagram live today. Just throwing it out there. If he becomes a Steeler, he wants some around the 412 merch.
We'll hook him up.
Yeah, we can get him the hook up there.
Dude, I gotta give credit to Brandon Ayuk, man. He is pulling every trick in the book at trying trying to put some pressure on right now. He doesn't have a ton of leverage, and he's trying to do it. Good for you, man. Good for you.
I'm reading tweets right now saying that he straight up said that if the Niners don't want to pay him, where's he going to play? And he said the Commanders. If not the Commanders, then probably the Steelers. So I mean,
just
I love it.
You got to appreciate how open the conversation has been.
No, I love it.
Yeah,
I think I would be as excited, if not more excited, than anybody because I'm a huge Brandon Ayuk fan. But I'm just ready to find out. I just want to know, is he going to be? I think he's going to be a Niner, but I'm just ready to kind of put this thing to bed so that we can stop talking about it because it almost seems like as soon as the hope starts to die down, he does something and it gets everyone super excited. Right now, just since this happened, I guess the interview happened 30 minutes ago. 2 people have already DM'd me the video on Twitter. Hey, did you see this? Did you see this? Are you going to go live on YouTube to talk about this? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not at all.
I love it.
Hilarious.
Yeah, as Derek alluded to, Nick does have an announcement. Nick, we've done a lot of these Farabaugh Fridays. Today is just another one while Alan and Derek are also here. Another Farabaugh Friday on the pod. But you have a very special announcement, and the floor is yours, pal.
Yeah, guys. So this is my last show, at least as members of Steelers now. I don't want to say it's my last show because I'm sure Alan will hit me up many times and just have me on at some point. But this is my last show with the crew. Unfortunately, I am heading elsewhere starting next week. Man, it's been, Alan, you hired me in 2020, man. Basically been 5 years, really, because I worked the whole of 2020, and it's been a long time, man. A long winding road. I've been working alongside Alan for a long time. Been working alongside Smitty and Derek now for a year. That's something I had wanted to do for a very long time. So the fact that I was able to do that was really cool. Alan basically told me from a little fledgling baby, and now, I'm in the locker room every day, traveling, and basically taught me the ropes of how to do this thing, man. And it's crazy. It is crazy. I got a little, emotional thinking about it just because basically I grew up as a reporter here at Steelers now. But I'm heading elsewhere. And I really can't thank you all enough. Not just Alan and Smitty and Derek and all the other guys that I've, come into contact with, at Pittsburgh Sports Now, guys like Mike Bukovican and Dan Kingerski and George Michalowski, just guys that, are really talented in your network that, I've learned from and worked with and had the opportunity to do great things with. And thank you all for reading and watching my stuff with Steelers Now. Again, I don't think it's a permanent goodbye. I'm sure I'll stop by here every now and then with you guys. But yeah, this is my last episode as a full-time member of Steelers Now, guys.
Yeah, we didn't bar Carter after he left, so I guess we set the precedent that you're allowed to come back. But that's good, man. I've loved every minute of these 4.5 years of you working with me, and I mean, I think the audience sees it, but I probably see Nick more than I see like my family on a day-to-day basis. We spent an awful lot of long-ass car rides, questionable hotel rooms, some really good dinners, some pretty crazy nights at the bar together. It's been not just a really, I think, successful business partnership. I think it's been a friendship. I'm sure that's going to continue. And I'm really excited to see you moving on in a career in a positive direction. I always tell people when I hire them that sometimes our people grow faster than our company does. And I'm always happy for them when it happens. I am now starting to get to the point where I think I'm going to have more people that I taught how to do this job working against me than for me, which is, I don't know. I got a bigger coaching tree than Tomlin. I'm just going to say that. But I think people are going to be excited to see where you're going, and obviously we're going to do our best to replace Nick's work at Steelers Now and do everything we can to maintain what I think is a really, man. I tell you what, I've been interviewing people, and it's like, woo, and Nick did a lot. Like this is some big shoes to fill here. Like it's not just going to be any old person that's going to be able to walk in that door. So we really appreciate everything you've done. Super proud of what we accomplished together. Can't wait to see where you go from here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, Alan, you and I have we've hit the road. We've gone to coast together. We've gone everywhere throughout these years, man. It's been crazy. So it's funny because when I was in college, I legitimately would go to class, and then just on a Saturday, I'd be like, "All right, Alan, we're going to this city, right? We're driving 5 hours to Indianapolis. We're driving 7 to Charlotte." Man, those long car rides. The 14 hours from Mobile this year, I think, can't forget those. Man, there's just so many that are unforgettable, and the hole in the walls that Alan finds in the middle of rural Indiana that no one will ever find again. I mean, there's just so many things about these, man, that you can't forget. It's been a wonderful 4.5 years. It really has.
The coaching tree statement, I just wanted to bring back the whole, that's like saying Desmond King played more snaps than Breiden Fehoko.
The bar is really low. No, I mean, I'll just say, man, like, Nick, I mean, we crossed paths, I don't know, probably like 5 years ago. I don't know. I think you were like 14 at the time or something, but it was cool, man. Like it's hard for me to find like too many people that are as invested in like, the really, unique, nerdy aspects of the game. So I feel like that's kind of like where our relationship started to grow. But, for me and you doing like YouTube videos, breaking down game film like 5 years ago, it's been awesome to see you grow. And then also like with me coming over last year, it's been fantastic working with you, man. So I say all the time, like, and I really do mean this, not just because like I'm on the Steelers Now team, but like I really do feel like at the very top of the Pittsburgh, media spectacle, it's Nick and Alan at the very top. I feel like they do this job and everything that comes with it at such a high level that doesn't get appreciated enough. So I'm definitely rooting for you, man. I'm excited to see, what's in store, and I know you're going to crush it. So.
Absolutely. Nick, we've already had this conversation because we knew this was coming. We actually went out to dinner at Bowser's. Shout out Beaver County.
Yeah.
Bowser's, by the way, to have a conversation about it. You know how excited I am for you to take on a new opportunity. Obviously, selfishly, I will miss you being around as much as you were. I'm sure we'll still see you on here from time to time, though. But I'm so excited for you to just go and crush this as well, and just continuing to watch the journey. So it's been a fun year. I know that we've obviously known each other a lot longer than that. Like you said, I'm at least glad that we were able to do this for a year of time before you went on to another mission. So just excited to watch you continue to grow, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. I really do. And I appreciate you all for supporting my content throughout the years and watching it and everything. I really do. I think that the fan base that, not only Steelers Afternoon Drive, but the Steelers Now kind of brand has cultivated is really a special one in terms of readership. And it made, writing and doing this job day in and day out very rewarding. So I really can't thank you all that have supported us as a team throughout the years enough. And I really hope you continue to support Alan and Derek and Zach and whoever the new hire is coming in, because I do think, that they continue to produce some of the best Steelers content around, man. I really do. Alan is one of one on the beat to me. I don't think you'll find anybody like Alan on the Steelers beat with his kind of eye for what he does. I think Derek is a very special type of film watcher and how he breaks down the game so simply for such a, big time, complicated stuff sometimes. And Smitty is Smitty. You know what that means. So
I was going to say, there's no way you can lump me in with any of that. So
adds a ton of flair to it on his own. So it's been a wonderful 4.5 years, folks. It really has. So I'm gonna miss it. I really am.
Nick, last thing, as you know, you got to tell the people where to find you, because maybe the people from Steelers Now want to head to your Twitter to unfollow you. No, I'm just kidding. But tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter X at Farabaugh FB. As I always do here, folks, you better make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell on the Steelers Now YouTube channel. Make sure to head over to Steelers Now and read. I'm still around for 2 days. I just got back from Hawaii, which also means I'm dog tired, by the way. I got a red eye from Honolulu to Chicago and then back here. So I'm tired, but I have 2 great stories coming from there. One on Roman Wilson and Nick Herbig at the St. Louis school, because it seems like the Steelers have a thing for that place, because like 5 Steelers have played there before. Only 3 of them are actually on the team right now, but we got that. And then we're going to talk about kind of the culture of football in Hawaii and how it's helping, guys like Breiden Fehoko, who we talked about, and guys like Isaac Seumalo, the Herbigs, Roman Wilson, all of those guys. So 2 big features coming this weekend. I want you all to read them. You better read them, because they're real good.
Which I think is also a great way to close out the tenure here with those 2 exclusive stories from your time in Hawaii.
I just want to say he's leaving and he's still pushing the product. So that's yeah. This is great work here. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Derek, like I said, I'm going to link that interview you had with Fehoko down below. Obviously, people know about the YouTube channel, stuff like that. But other than that, tell the people where they can find you.
It's just at Steelers_DB on Twitter and YouTube. And all my written work at SteelersNow.com.
There we go. Alan?
At Saunders_PGH on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell for notifications. And stay tuned. We will be bringing on somebody out. The hope is to have this all wrapped up before start training camp. But we'll see how things go. Been doing interviews. Lots of good candidates. I'm excited. I think we're gonna be able to hit the ground running. But we're certainly gonna miss Nick a lot.
Alan, is it true that if your personal TikTok or ours, I'm sorry, if our YouTube channel surpasses all Steelers, that you will do a TikTok dance? There's a rumor going around that you said you would do a TikTok dance if we pass the all Steelers YouTube
I
channel.
did not say that, or if I did say that, it was like way deep into the night of like Noah's wedding, and I don't recall saying that. But like I will do that. Sure. Like I've got no problem.
We got a ways to get there, so be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here, and hit us in the comments. Follow us on TikTok as well. Steelers Afternoon Drive, trying to grow that up. Follow me everywhere, Zachary Smith PGH. This is a fun one. This is a blast again. All the best to Nick on his next venture. But for Derek Bell, for Nick Farabaugh, for Alan Saunders, and myself, man, that was a lot to say. Thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.